Hello, my name's Andrew Fiddler, the owner and broker of LaPlante Real Estate. Discussing today why we advertise a single price on the market and why that single price is then entered as the lease rate on the resident's lease and is the dollar amount when it's not paid that we would initiate an eviction upon. Additionally, how we use that information to establish the rent rate that we put at the top of your lease. It is natural for an investor to want to itemize fees as they come in the mail on your property and to assess those to your residents. So logically, if you have a water fee, homeowner association fee, cleaning fee, dumpster fee, it's logical to want to advertise a property for $500 and then have another $100 fee and another $100 fee and a $50 fee. So you're ultimately getting the $750 that you feel you deserve. And you've now itemized your fees so you can reconcile them. And if a new fee comes up, you can make sure you bookmark that and we assess it for the new lease period. The result is we are exceeding some federal and local standards for bait and switch, for federal junk fees, and then we're definitely muddying the waters when we get in front of a magistrate for an eviction. Starting in reverse order, the magistrate who is going to look at your lease, and they're going to see that we have a $750 total dollar amount we're expecting from the resident, but $500 is entered on the lease. If the resident paid $600, how are you assessing that money? And the magistrate post-COVID is very likely to simply remove the $250 fee and then only recognize the simple lease rate. They're not interested in trying to go through, peel the onion and go through all those charges. On a federal rate, on the federal junk fees standpoint, they want to ensure that we are not operating like a hotel, a concert, airline, where you buy a ticket at one price and then it goes up by 27% before you actually receive that service. That's where it's being kind of challenged currently. And then on the junk fees standpoint locally, the requirement is that you, first of all, don't have usurious fees. They have to be reasonable in scope, so you can't have a late fee of $250. There's legislation to hold on that. And then there's also a requirement to not require mandatory charges. An example to that would be LaPlante Real Estate does not require residents to pay a $50 bill processing fee or even a $5 bill processing fee in order to assess a water bill on a single family home where the resident's responsible for the water. Because on our end, LaPlante Real Estate wants to ensure the water bill is paid, and so we accrue that on our accounting side. We have a labor cost to be able to track that for the resident, but we're not able to charge the resident for the service of handling their water bill when they're not able to get out of that service. It's not an opt-out option. So you have to be careful of how you're kind of stacking burden on your residents and what that looks like. The conclusion is, we will advertise, on the example we just discussed, $750. We will not advertise $500. Oh, and by the way, there's more fees. So the $750 is generated in an organized fashion, and I'll guide you to the conclusion on that, but let's walk through the steps. So we're going to look at this would be a lease renewal or a new lease. So they're kind of one and the same, but if you have a resident, we want to see the resident's history. We're going to perform the annual inspection. We want to see how the resident's been living, and we're going to factor that into what our recommendation is for renewing the lease, like whether to renew or how much to increase the rent, the specific neighborhood that your property's in, and then comparable rent for properties that are on the market. And we're hoping to try to help the owner understand that if the property's been occupied for 5 years, you're not really apples to apples. You need to do renovation in order to get the market price, which may be significantly higher than your present rate. However, with 5 years of wear and tear and 5-year-old carpet and paint, you probably want to discount what that market rate is when you're comparing what the resident should be charged. What you don't want is the resident to get happy feet, move out of your property and move into a freshly painted property because it's essentially the same price to them. Lastly, we want to see what your specific property is, and this goes into the vacant end where we're looking to establish a market rate and something we want to advertise on. So we're going to look at the square footage of your property, how many bedrooms, what are the amenities, you know, does it flow evenly? You want to see what the condition of the updates are. Hopefully we went for the upper end of the rent range. And then you want to see what your amenities are. And this is where the terminology changes. So if you have a deck or patio on the back, that is an amenity, is a value to the resident and something that may incentivize them to select this property over some other property. If you have heat included, water included, those, and I'll even say like the homeowners association, let's just say there's value of standardization that comes with the homeowners association so the resident can be more proud of this house than perhaps a home without a homeowners association. Those are amenities that they're receiving, and we can bump the rent based on that, but it's always has to be in comparison to what you can go onto the market today and rent another property for. And so hopefully the owner and the property manager are unified that we want to kind of get our chips on the table, get them picked up quickly, and make that rental cost effectively. Holding cost is just a looming nemesis. So if you have called the 750, stay on that example. If you look at the $750 rent rate that we say is competitive, that would lead me to suspect that we have like a 785, a 795, and maybe an 815. And we want to try to kind of get in under some of those numbers to be competitive and to be selected quickly by a resident. The result is you want to ensure that the property hits the market and is taken off the market and doesn't sit for another 90 days, costing you holding costs and like aging on the market and detracting from residents' interest in staying. The same conversation with the lease renewing is our goal is to keep the resident in the property. Your profit from investment property does not come from an annual turnover. That's what it is damaged by. The real value is if you're able to conceivably keep a resident for 10 years at a significantly low rental rate, you will find that it will make as much profit as a much higher rental rate with an every other year turnover. And then if you try an annual turnover by comparison, the rent rate has to be catastrophically high. So the goal is for us to guide stability in your portfolio, stability in the resident's life. And then the final conclusion is note that we are looking at the expenses in your property as amenities to the resident because that's really the sales portion of the property management service. We want to make sure the residents are selecting your property and want to live there. Expenses from the investor's standpoint are a reality. My advice is if we had a massive flat tax just got applied to all properties in the neighborhood, you should see the market rise, but you're going to see that based on the rent comparables. If you simply receive a piece of paper in the mail and you say, now I'm increasing my marketing on the market, you run the risk of being the very first one on the market to declare this increase. And therefore, other properties conceivably will rise behind you, but you're going to be stuck on the marketplace acting as the primary indicator. You don't want to be in that position. You want to be able to get in, rent your property, and get it back off the market. But that is our procedure for having one advertised one advertised price, and also our process for establishing a rent rate and ensuring that we get your properties on the market, rented, and that we try to ensure there's stability in the property. We want the resident to enjoy the property, to appreciate it, and definitely stay for the long term for our mutual benefit. As always, thank you for entrusting LaPlante Real Estate with your portfolio here in Toledo.